Adrian Saville, Professor in Economics, Finance and Strategy at GIBS. I'm here with my colleague and friend, Professor Nick Binedell. Welcome to our penultimate episode of Fate, Luck and Choice for 2025, where we look back at the year that was, try and figure out the highlights, the headlines, the lowlights, and have a bit of fun trying to work out an animal archetype for the year. And then to fast forward us, we'll get there in our final episode, 2025, where we try and look through the murk, the fog, the haze to figure out the year that's coming at us. Nick, it's great to be with you.
Yeah, and with you, Adrian, as always. I've really enjoyed this Fate, Luck and Choice series, and let's get underway. So let's talk about the animal. I've done this for some years now. So my animal of choice for this past year is the camel, which has to sustain itself for long periods without sustenance. And I think in South Africa's case, this low growth environment we've been in, you've got to have resilience, you've got to have reserves, and you've got to cross the desert. It's pretty tough going. But I used to ride them when I grew up in Yemen as a little boy. So I've always loved camels.
Okay. There was a joke in there, something about you've got the hump with the year, or perhaps we're over the hump.
The camels I used to ride were two hump camels.
Well, that might be 2025. There were a couple
two
of
humps and one dip.
Yeah. So, I went, let me go the other way around in my description is, to try and figure out what the year sort of feels like. And it's been a year that, has moved incredibly slowly in parts, where days have felt like weeks, weeks like months, and other periods where suddenly there's a burst of speed in the space of a couple of hours. There's swift change. So I'm in search of an animal that oftentimes is lumbering, but then can find short bursts of speed. It's a year in which sort of visibility has been low. It's been incredibly difficult to see what's around the corner. So I'm looking for an animal that's short-sighted, and it's been a particularly unusual year. So my animal needs to be, on the scarcer or rarer side of the spectrum. And so for that trifecta, the animal that ticks those three boxes is not just the rhino, but the black rhino. Grumpy, short-sighted, lumbering. Absolutely thick-skinned, and rhinos listen well. So I think it's been a year in which, whilst visibility has been low, you need to have really been listening carefully for clues and suggestions about what's around the corner, which more often than not has been surprise rather than certainty.
That's lovely. It has been exactly that year. It's been an extraordinary year, I think. And in some ways, one of the most remarkable years in recent memory, I think, globally, at least.
What was your big surprise for the year, Nick? What was the thing that, if we look backwards, you say, wow, I would never have anticipated this?
I'll say the obvious. All of us expected it to be wild with Trump. None of us expected it to be this wild. And it's gone through certain phases. I don't know if we've had peak Trump, but he certainly has had, his leadership approach has had an extraordinary impact on the world. And having just held the G20, it's all come to the surface in South Africa. And I wish it weren't so. I think the US really is going through a very difficult period of identity, of how to engage with the rest of the world, and how to get to continue this post-war period where it became the uber power, but having done it in a somewhat understandable, consistent way from Bretton Woods onwards. And now it's just completely unpredictable. He is the most extraordinary individual, and I think he's sadly the man of the year.
Yeah. So if I ask the same question to myself, you're not asking it to me, so I'll ask it to myself. my surprise of the year. I agree with you that, the most noise, the most disruption, the shock and awe of 130% tariffs being imposed, on a Sunday afternoon, on women fancy. I think, without qualification or without question, Donald Trump gets to be the greatest influencer or impactor of the year. But going back to my black rhino, sort of the slow moving, the lumbering, the thing that has really held my attention is the way in which institutional fabric globally, I think, finishes the year stronger than it started. And in part, this is evidenced by the way in which the institutions of democracy and multilateral collaboration have strengthened, not to the extent necessary, but finished the year stronger than they started. If I were to choose a surprise, my prize would go to Japan, which finishes the year with a female head of state, a woman in charge of the country. I think this truly is remarkable, and that adds to the element of scarcity in the characterization of 2025.
That's lovely. Lovely. I've got two other animals in mind. So one is elephant phenomena, which really has to do a bit like your rhino, slow, big, irresistible movement, big trends that have been going on for a long time that are surfacing. Climate change, AI, the move to the east, that's the dominant logic. These are slow-moving, long-term. Demography. I've been following a man called Nicholas Eberstadt, who's talking about depopulation, and the total fertility rate may become below replacement level in the next 50, 60 years. And some countries like Japan are losing 1 million people a year. The population is declining by 1 million a year, 800 to 100 to 1 million a year, 800,000 to 1 million. And so there's a big lot of depopulation, and everyone's surprised when they look at the numbers to find this is a global phenomenon. In South Africa, our fertility rate's dropped by 20% in 15 years. So it's got all sorts of implications for labor forces, for markets, and it's partly shifting because of longevity, which the 20th century, as he says, is the year of a longer life, and the 21st century is the year of longer life and less people being born. So there are many of these long-term elephants that are just plodding their way through our lives and that fascinate me. Where's globalization going to go, etc. But I want to add the other little creature, which is I got stung by a blue bottle a couple of weeks ago in Cape Town. And I'm not in Cape Town now, I'm in Slovenia where I'm teaching. But it was a pretty painful shock. And we've had a few blue bottle experiences as well.
I know a laugh isn't appropriate, but
no, you're allowed to laugh.
I got to insert chuckle here.
Yeah.
I've been stung by blue bottles too.
Yeah, so elephants and blue bottles, nasty little things that bite you. And because I only got bitten by one, which was lucky. Years ago, I got bitten by 5 at the same time, and that was not the best one I've had.
Okay, so clearly you don't learn.
I keep swimming. The thing about this 2025 is keep swimming or you're going to really struggle.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could sort of play with the analogies, the blue bottles, fierce sting. They tend to be superficial. You survive, you can move on. You need many blue bottles to sting you in order for it to be fatal. So the stings are superficial. And in many ways, the bursts of anger and fury of 2025 have passed. We've been able to digest them. Blue bottles also are very, very hard to see, fantastic at camouflaging themselves in the ocean environment. When you were talking about the elephants, I thought my head immediately went to, Nick's going to talk about United States and China being the big elephants, and the rest of us getting trampled underfoot. I thought that that's where you were going to go, but I love your points about the elephants being slow moving. The direction of travel is very certain. And demography, well, I mean, elephants have got a long gestation period, so we could play with that. But your point about demography, I was in Japan recently, to go back to my sort of country or political episode of the year, and I was stunned, at the just at the sort of anecdotal demographic profile. If you do a scan of the pavement or a scan of the room, no babies, no prams, and working ages. If you jump into a cab, it's quite common for your cab driver to be in his or her 70s.
Exactly.
And
I'm not,
that started as a phenomenon fairly unique to Japan, but as you're
yes.
pointing out, it's now become this is a global phenomenon, that the world is
Right.
proximate to peak population.
So, because I'm in Europe, let me talk quickly about that. I made a train trip from London to Slovenia in Eastern Europe, stopping in 6 cities over 12 days. And I've got it. And then I listened to CEOs in a panel last Friday talking about the outlook. It really is quite shocking. Frankfurt train station really belongs in another continent, not in what I understood Germany to be. In the last 2 years, I've taken 11 German Deutsche Bahn, German train system. Nine of the
Mm-hmm.
11 were late. It's just beyond my
Wow.
comprehension. And I listened to the Austrian CEO of a big company saying they can't get people to work more than
Mm.
35 hours. They can't get them to do overtime. And a Danish futurist describing trying to recruit people in Copenhagen, where people under 30, and it's another interesting theme, is the generational dynamics, which I think are quite clear, and I'll touch on that. But what she was saying is she posts an ad, and younger under 30-year-olds call her and say, yeah, I'll consider coming to work for you, but come and have coffee with me. So you've got to come across town and interview me, and then I'll decide if I want to apply. So there are these very complex phenomena in Europe.
Good grief.
I can tell you,
Yeah.
generally, the mood is very, very pessimistic. And of course, the European war that we're witnessing doesn't help the mood.
And so the late trains references not just sort of workforce, but also decaying infrastructure,
Absolutely.
where as the economy and the working population have gotten older, they have diverted resources
Yeah.
away from the productive engine of the economy.
Exactly. And at the same time, as we all know, we're seeing this populist reflex to
Mm-hmm.
working class people who are from that country, seeing migrants and seeing jobs become tougher, and the job world moving into the agentric job world. And so populist leaders in many European, UK, Farage, France, Italy, Hungary, Poland, all electing right of center leaders and moving away from the liberal post-war order. It's visible, and I think it's not a train that's going to stop too soon.
Nick, if we try and bring our heads together in sort of wrapping up 2025, if you were to sort of score the country, score the year from a country perspective, from a South Africa perspective, do you think the country finishes the year better than it started?
I do. I absolutely do. I think there are a
And
few.
what would be the things that cause you to give uh, that tick
A,
better
a
rather
little
than
bit of
worse?
growth, a little bit of growth, the business government relationship, stabilizing some of the SOEs like Transit and Eskom, sadly, there's not much investment. You would know more than me, but I don't see much domestic or foreign investment. So it's a kind of status quo year with a little bit of green shoots coming, a little bit of a better mood. I haven't been there for G20, but I feel that that's a little mood pick up, a little cocktail at the end of the year. So for South Africa, that's where it is. Intellectually, I think it's been one of the most extraordinary years, as I said earlier, in the last many. Everything is moving. And if I had to pick something, it would be the agentic organization that we're beginning to see AI agents undertaking in law firms and in sales forces a huge amount of work that's going to reshape the nature of work and the nature of economies. So globally, you can't simplify it into one thing, a lot of uncertainty. But, let me just end this part by saying Southeast Asia remains my favorite region. There's so much going on. You've been there recently again. I've been there a lot.
Yeah.
It's the world of short people, and it's moving. And they're working, they're succeeding in many different kinds of political structures. And it's my pick. That and the stands. We maybe talk about in the second part of the outlook, but I'm seeing lots of discussion about all the the Kazakhstans, etc.
You say that I've been to Southeast Asia recently. I was in Singapore 2 weeks back for the FinTech Festival. Absolutely extraordinary event. And maybe I could close out this part of our conversation with my anecdotes from Singapore, where clearing immigration is a 31-second event, entirely digital, not a single piece of paper, but from this side of the country to that, or this side of the border to that side of the border, 31 seconds, entirely digital and paperless. And smoking outdoors, designated areas, people arrange themselves in lined off little blocks, and no one steps outside the line. Institutional fabric is the order of the day. And you and I have spoken on many occasions about the importance of institutions, and this is social cohesion, where we agree on the way things are run, and out of that prosperity emerges. So, Nick, we close up here with
before we do that, how would you score the year, Adrian?
I would agree with you, Nick, that a greenish tick for South Africa, that South Africa finishes the year better than it started. Political maturity evidencing itself, the public-private partnership that you've spoken about, growth nowhere near where it needs to be, but I think that it is positioning itself for better times, helped by the important network industries of energy and transport, which are finding their feet again. As we speak, I think we're on something like day 600 of uninterrupted electricity, and port turnaround times in Durban are showing important signs of improvement, lifting us off the bottom of the table. So slightly green tick, but not nearly as glowing as it needs to be. And perhaps we go there with our elephant, blue bottle, camel, and
let me add, as we finish, two bad elephants. One is our cities. Our cities are in a terrible, shocking state, and I don't know if we can recover them, many of them. And the other is the silent elephant of education. We are so far behind, it's extraordinary. So, good discussion.
My rhino will meet your three animals in 2026.
But watch out for the blue bottles if you're a rhino. See you next time.
Cheers, Nick.